Oh my god, my sense. Holy shit. What's up? Hello, hello. I don't know why every time I start this version, it resets my sensitivity. So I continued mining a little bit. I've kind of headed up to the surface now because, I didn't find any diamonds, but we have more than enough iron. Oh my god, get away from me, please. Anyways, we're just gonna... Can you please not? Oh my god, there's so many mobs. Maybe I should have stayed underground. But let me also turn that down because rain is annoying. Let's kill that guy. I want to find some place to build, finally. I think my spawn was over here. I honestly don't remember. Okay, hello there. I'm gonna be honest, I thought those were pillagers for a second and it confused me real bad. Okay. But yeah, I just want to find a place to build, which means I actually want to find that taiga again. Because I remember our spawn looking like super, super nice. Oh no, get away from me, please. Anyways, I think it's over there. Yeah. Sheep almost pushed me off the block over there. I don't know what kind of house I want to build. I just kind of want to explore for some area that gives me enough inspiration to figure that shit out. But I do like this little, like, river that has, like, a mix of spruce and oak trees. So I kind of want to build around this somewhere. I do prefer the taiga, I will say. But we will see, we will see. Got a giant ice lake here. Huh. Ooh, actually, before anything, give me 1 second. I just have to... Oh my god, I don't know if you heard my cat, but she said hi. For these types of videos, I usually set, like, a timer, just so I have, like, you know, a start and end period that's pretty set, because I don't tend to cut these videos. I tend to leave them just kind of, like, going. So... let's see. Maybe... Ooh, ravine. I want to build near this at least. Actually, hold on. I want to see what was over here. Because this looked like a... You know what? If this isn't like another big cave, I think I'm going to try and fill this area in. And then I'll build a little hut in this little flat area. But first, I do want to get at least some stuff out of my inventory, so I think I'm going to make some chests. I keep switching between older and newer versions, so I keep forgetting if I have the ability to, like, click and drag items. Let's see. Place down furnaces. Take some of this. Oh my god, I was down there for so long and I have 3 coal. That's actually kind of absurd. But I want to leave at least some of this iron smelting. I don't need it particularly at the moment, but we'll at least... Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna... hold on. Just gonna cook my iron. We have a friend! I think they're... I'm afraid I'm gonna, like, open a GUI and they're just gonna, like, be right there. Let's see. I think I want to make a couple more furnaces. So that we can kind of, like, maximize the output here. Actually, hold on. We're getting a screenshot of this guy. What should their name be? What do you look like? Huh. His name's Rupert. was gonna say Carl, but that feels like so basic for like a creeper name that like I really don't. I don't want to go with that. Oh my god, my cat's screaming. This is actually throwing me off so much. They're so chill. I didn't know they were. Oh, not chill, not chill. I repeat, not chill. Get out of here. What are you doing? What the fuck? Okay. Okay. We're gonna make another iron pick, and I think I need to go get more coal, because this is kind of ridiculous. There's some iron down there, but I don't need that. It's honestly nice to be sitting back down and just playing again. I think I say this pretty much every time that I record, but I've been working so much. It is so tiring. So it's kind of nice to just be able to sit here and play a game and not have to worry about, you know, what I'm doing or what I've got to work on or something like that. Which actually goes into, I think, a topic I was talking about last video where, like, as, like, a new YouTuber, you get recommended a bunch of, like, how to grow on YouTube videos. And it pushes this, like, it puts this pressure to, like, upload so often. Like, you've got to work YouTube, like, an actual 9 to 5 to be successful. But I feel like there's also something also counterintuitive to doing that, because I feel like if you go too much with like being formulaic with like how to blow up or like how to become popular, it's too samey for it to be unique enough to kind of like have longevity in my brain. There's so much iron. I don't know if it's like this version specifically, but I have like 2 stacks. I don't even think anvils are in the game. I think anvils were added in like 1.4 or something like that, so I don't need it for that. Are iron golems in the game yet? I don't know that either. But anyways, yeah, there's this just like constant strive to be like doing something or being efficient or being like productive. And I think sometimes, as much as you should be productive to some extent, you should be responsible with what you're doing. I think the overt push for it nowadays is honestly killing people. Especially on the internet. You're exposed to such like a wide variety of people and experiences, and you get to see like the successes of, you know, pretty much anyone out there that decides to put it out there onto the internet. But I think in such a widespread fashion, it almost puts the idea into people's brains that it is, you know, normal to be like hyper successful in your early 20s or like a billionaire. You're supposed to be, you know, that typical grind set content. But I think it's just inherently unrealistic, and I think it's put into people's brains a lot that you should be working that hard constantly. But part of progress, I think, is, you know, sitting down and recovering. You know, like, you work out a muscle, you gotta kind of, like, sit down, you know, probably eat some protein in order to kind of, like, you know, regenerate those muscle fibers and be able to kind of, like, you know, sustain you working out. And if you're trying to progress in everything and you're just trying to maximize the efficiency of just like, you know, being the best, it's draining. And it's almost unsustainable in my brain, because like I was saying, you need rest in order to kind of like process stuff. As like someone who likes to work on creative projects, like if I sat down and kind of force myself to make things at every waking moment, it would completely ruin the idea of like art for me, because it's just that hyper maximized and, you know, like that almost like industrialization of like the human body that shouldn't be normalized to the extent that it is. You see things like, I don't know, like looks maxing even come up, and it's like, it's this constant push to be like perfect and being like the best ever version of a human being. And not only does it kind of like have a lot of roots in patriarchal society and like unreasonable societal standards and gender norms and all that stuff, it's just unhealthy. You know what I mean? Like, especially on the internet, like people are fully aware that they have such like a widespread outreach whenever you put stuff out there. And I think the normalization of content like that, or just even reactionary stuff in general, it's very harmful. Like, a lot of kids are on the internet, and parents should be able to kind of control what their kids are watching to some extent. Though I think there's nuance with, you know, parents having time given capitalism, at least in the West, and you know, not having the time to parent and all that stuff. But like, kids are just kind of placed onto the internet, and people are just on the internet generally. Also, I'm so sorry if you could hear my dog. People are just placed onto the internet generally, where like, because of the systems that we rely under, like, it's always going to be like the most reactionary, unhealthy content, and constantly consuming stuff like that is just super bad for your brain. And I don't think people realize it, that like, even down to watching like constant success stories, you know, like, it puts this idea in your brain that everyone should be able to achieve that, or that it's even realistic in the first place for everyone to achieve that, which pushes people to almost like start working themselves as if they're inhuman. You know what I mean? I think the efficiency that we push for at the moment is extremely unrealistic to sustaining like a human body. And maybe to some extent that's why you see like a push for AI so much now, is, you know, I think corporations can come to the conclusion that, you know, you can't really work a human body up to, you know, being as efficient as they'd like us to be. So in order to replace it, we create, or, you know, not that AI hasn't been around, but we definitely push for AI being in quite literally everything, because, you know, it's unrealistic to be at the efficiency that companies want, or just corporations in general. Not to go woke on you, but shit is very scary. We're being pushed to inhuman limits for just infinite growth that just like isn't possible. And it makes me sad, because like, again, you have a bunch of kids being put into like this this environment where like it's normalized to be hyper successful, or, you know, it, depending on like your side of the internet, or like your preferred, you know, types of content, like just like almost like hyper, it's just like hyper perfection that we push towards, whether it be with looks or how well we work or how well we do in things. Some people, or I think everyone, deserves like chances to just kind of like chill out and sit down and realize that like it's okay to just like recover. I don't have to kind of constantly be going at it in order for me to have worth. I don't need to, you know, I don't need my worth to be kind of like determined by some like arbitrary number that isn't even like guaranteed for everybody, being like, you know, your income and whatnot. That's like the type of like messaging that's kind of normalized onto the internet. And I don't think people realize that like constant consumption of those messages does implant it into your brain to some extent. You know what I mean? And it's part of, honestly, the reason why I started this. Because as soon as I get to like getting into higher edited videos, It's this strive for perfection that is inherently impossible. At least I believe. I don't think humans can ever really be perfect because perfection is inherently a human-made concept. You know what I mean? But I wanted to even just like make this series because it's something where like I can just sit down. I force myself to just talk. I don't edit it, so you know I'll make mistakes. I'll mess up talking. You know, I'll stutter. I won't know what to say. I'll have silent bits, but that's part of sitting here and recording. You know what I mean? Everyone knows it, but it's almost like those moments of silence where you just get to chill out aren't normal, or they're not perceived as like okay. But I just wanted to, you know, sit here and I think of like old Let's Plays where, you know, people did just sit down and just record stuff. They didn't think of like editing it. Granted, back then when, you know, YouTube was coming out, like it wasn't seen as a viable option to people, at least people that like didn't believe in it. So, you know, it was more authentic in what people were creating in my brain because like it wasn't this push for like, hey, I can, you know, make these things or I can make content and then I can make this into a job. It was more like, oh, wow, this new website exists where I can share the things that I'm doing to a widespread population of people. And that conceptually is cool. You know, back then it wasn't really heard of or seen besides like generalized like media like TV or, you know, radio and stuff like that. But at some point, that deteriorated too. With TV, you got constant advertisements. You had, you know, predatory, I'd say, business practices from like cable companies. You had people buying out radios historically to spew specific, like opinions or whatnot, even outside of like political talk, just to get it out there. And I feel like once that starts happening to a space, a platform, you know, stuff like that, it almost like rots it. Like it brings this wave of people that sees it as like a profit method instead of something where it's like a genuine art form to work on. You know, even if it was as simple as people just like uploading stuff to show off, you know, it wasn't driven by this want for success, this drive for just like resource or like money. And I feel like it just kind of rots like a lot of the fun in it when that's all it's for. I want to sit down and I want to play Minecraft, and sometimes I want to show off that I play Minecraft because I find it validating, or, you know, I want to be able to just provide people with at least entertaining content that maybe will fill like the same nostalgia void that it does for me creating it. Because I think of old Let's Plays like I was mentioning before. I think of, you know, very low quality like 480p videos because that was just like the norm at the time. Bad mics, low bit rate. But, you know, it was like more genuine. It felt more authentic. You know what I mean? And I think it's also cool because at the same time, because a lot of people do put a lot of effort into making art, especially on this platform where it is like highly edited. But I think there's been a push, and I think there's been a realization from like, I don't want to say like normies, you know what I mean? I don't want to say like the general public because I don't want to demonize like the general public. I don't think like they're inherently at fault for a lot of these things. But I feel like when, you know, to put it simply, when normies get like access to, you know, being on the internet, depending on the place, I suppose, you know, that you live in, or like the economic status, like there's more of a push to kind of like, in a way, like for people to invade like art forms and use them as basically like a like like a get rich quick scheme, because there is like a formulaic way to kind of grab people's attention that relies on psychology. But it's inauthentic, you know what I mean? You're, to some extent, it's extremely forced because you're using the psychology of people to bring in attention. And to some extent, while it is just how our brains work, it feels like artificial attention because you do have to force it in the first place. And I don't want to have to do that, you know what I mean? There's going to be people that don't enjoy my content, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't want to have my worth in being a creator determined by, like, the numbers that I'm making, or, you know, how efficient I am at putting out videos, because it's not sustainable. I don't think it's realistic for anybody to be pushed that hard into creating. If you enjoy it, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, if this zombie is, like, hopping up and down ready to create videos, they should be able to, and they should be able to work as hard as they want at that because it's their passion. But seeing it as, like, a method to just make a bunch of money off of the, like, the most formulaic content ever, it takes a lot of the authenticity and the art out of making these. But yeah, that's my rant about efficiency and the push for it over time. I think it's stupid. I think we should all be able to relax and just, you know, pump out content without, you know, feeling like it has to be perfect in order to portray a message or have that message be, you know, portrayed well. Because art's cool, no matter what it is. But anyways, like I was saying, it's nighttime now. There's a couple sheep out there, actually. I have an idea before this skeleton shoots me through my window. Please. Please let me get this. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna run... Rude. Okay, I'm gonna go shear these sheep, because I'm on a bed. And I do not want to wait out through the night or just constantly fight mobs, so... We're gonna shear them, we're gonna head back home, and we're gonna make a bed. And I think... Is the sun rising? That's actually crazy. Okay, we're gonna try and make a bed before the sun rises. I have no planks. Alright, it's looking beautiful. 1, 2, 3, throw that out. 1, 2, 3. Bed speedrun. Probably world record. Okay, we're back. We're gonna just throw everything into this chest. This episode's been a mess. I went on a very long rant and I realized that, but that's okay. But again, why is it an issue that it is a mess? There's some charm to it. I think... Oh yeah, I wanted to work on some achievements. I couldn't find diamonds anywhere, but we did have a hoe and we did have seeds in order to start a farm. So I think I'm gonna do that. Take that. We'll plant these saplings around just to have some trees. I'm thinking just to make it a little less open behind the house, I'm gonna start placing just saplings throughout this area, just so it looks a little more filled in the background. And then eventually, I want to fill this in, but I feel like it could also be kind of a cool river type of thing. Because if we walk over here, I don't think it's on the same Y level necessarily, but I feel like this could almost connect all the way over here and then just kind of run throughout this. Oh, that's actually exciting. Oh, you know what? I'm going to start my farm right here. We're going to plant the sugarcane right there. And then I think I'm actually going to get started on that first. I'm going to go get a couple shovels. And then I want to make this into a little riverbed. I think that would be pretty cool. Or I could even like surround the outside with cobblestone so that it's kind of like Are they canals? I feel like that's not the right term for it. Maybe. I think it might be a canal. I think it'll look pretty cool, because it's going to go through this kind of little underpass, this little, like, arch. And then kind of... Ooh, what if it... This might be a little odd, but what if it actually, like, flowed downwards as it moved? Because it's going to be on this Y level, but I know this resides on this Y level. So my idea is that once it comes to here, it'll flow down, and then we'll have more water source blocks that just leads it over there. So it kind of leads it down one Y level. I think it'll look pretty cool. Ooh, for like a huge terraforming project, I wonder if you could do that with like terrain and just have it kind of looking like it's flowing downwards. But yeah, I need to collect even more dirt, actually. So I think I'm just gonna kind of like flatten out these areas. I think what I'm gonna do, just because my timer went off, but I do want to continue playing, I want to at least get this filled in so that I can flow the water over. And then from there, I think I'll end the episode. Let's see. Is that spider aggroed on me? Bruh. Okay, a little bit more dirt. So I'm just going to head up here. I was watching one of those like how to terraform in Minecraft videos. I don't know who the YouTuber was, in which I apologize, but there was this one dude that mentioned like you should kind of like line them up in like, I don't know how to describe it, but they'll basically be like, yeah, you have 1, then it'll curve in 2, then it'll curve in 3, then it'll curve in like 2. And it just kind of adds this like gradual thing, but they never really go above like, I guess like 5 or 6, because it just starts looking unnatural, if that makes sense. And I noticed it's kind of how I normally build stuff, if that makes sense. Just because it feels true, where like that kind of like gradual number progression of those like sloping kind of like areas. I don't know geography, so I apologize on the lack of terminology here, but it makes the terrain look smoother. Just generally a little bit more like, I don't know, just smoother. I think that's the only descriptor I've got for it. And actually thinking about it, since we have to, that's so funny. So yeah, I'm gonna fill this in, and then I'll probably get a water bucket, and then I think I'm just gonna cut to when it's done, seeing that I got a call, so I'm gonna have to edit this video at least a little bit. So alrighty, as the sun sets, it's not perfect. I still have to do a little bit of digging. I quite literally just finished filling this in, but it just started. I think it honestly already looks a little cute. Just a little river. It goes through the little overpass on here, and then it kind of ends over here. I might expand it a little bit. Once I explore the caves, I'll probably just like cover them up. But yeah, we could probably have like a little bridge right here. I can imagine we have like a farm in this area or something like that. This is looking cute. I love it. I love it. But sun's setting. I think I'm gonna hop into bed, and then that's where I'm calling it. we have a house now, which is pretty cool. And we've made some progress. I still want to, what's it called? I still want to get some diamonds. I feel like we got some quite early on the last version, but that is okay. So yeah, I'm gonna head to bed, and I hope you guys enjoyed. See you later.